The millionaire's daughter was always sick. Until the nanny looked under her bed. The first time Sophie fainted, everyone blamed the weather. The second time, they blamed stress. By the fifth hospital visit in 3 months, even the best doctors in Toronto had no answers. And that's when her father, Daniel Harper, began to fear something far worse than illness. Daniel Harper was the kind of man Canada admired. A self-made tech entrepreneur based in Toronto, owner of one of the fastest-growing software companies in Ontario. He lived in a glass mansion overlooking Lake Ontario, drove electric cars before they were trendy, donated to children's hospitals, and appeared on business magazine covers with confident smiles. But none of that mattered when his 8-year-old daughter lay pale and trembling in a hospital bed. Sophie had once been a bright, energetic child. She loved skating in winter at Nathan Phillips Square, feeding ducks at High Park, and building snow forts in their backyard. But over the past year, something changed. She began waking up exhausted. She complained of headaches. She refused to sleep alone. She lost weight. She startled at small noises. Some nights she screamed. Doctors ran every test possible. Blood work, MRI scans, allergy panels, psychological evaluations. Nothing definitive. Stress-related, one specialist suggested gently. Children of high-profile parents can feel pressure. Daniel refused to believe that. He gave Sophie everything: private school, horseback riding lessons, a room full of books and toys. How could she be stressed? But Sophie kept getting worse. That's when Maya entered their lives. Maya was a 32-year-old nanny who had recently moved to Canada from the Philippines. She had experience in child care and glowing references from families in Vancouver. She wasn't flashy or overly talkative. She observed more than she spoke. Her kindness felt steady, not dramatic. At first, Daniel hired her simply because he needed help. He was running a company with over 200 employees. He had investors calling from Vancouver, Montreal, even New York. He couldn't be home all day. But Maya noticed things others missed. She noticed how Sophie flinched when certain footsteps echoed down the hallway. She noticed how Sophie insisted on keeping her bedroom door locked at night. She noticed how the child's eyes drifted toward the floor whenever Daniel's younger brother, Victor, visited. Victor had moved in 6 months earlier, temporarily, after a business failure in Calgary. Daniel trusted him completely. They had grown up together in a small town in Alberta. Victor was charming, funny, and always brought Sophie expensive gifts. But Maya had worked with children long enough to recognize fear that didn't come from illness. One night, after Sophie woke up screaming from another nightmare, Maya sat beside her bed and gently stroked her hair. "It's okay," Maya whispered. "You're safe." Sophie's small fingers clutched her sleeve. "He's under there," she whispered. "Who?" Maya asked softly. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "He says if I tell, Daddy will get sick too." Maya's heart dropped. The next afternoon, while Sophie was at school and the house was quiet, Maya went into her bedroom. She knelt slowly beside the bed. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the bed skirt. What she found wasn't a monster. It was a small voice recorder taped underneath the wooden frame. And beside it, hidden deeper in the shadows, was a second device, a tiny camera pointing outward. Maya felt cold. She immediately contacted a child protection hotline in Ontario before confronting anyone. She documented everything carefully, as advised. That evening, when Victor came home smiling and calling Sophie Princess, police officers arrived instead. The investigation moved quickly. The devices had been used to manipulate and frighten Sophie. Victor had been sneaking into her room at night, hiding under the bed on multiple occasions, whispering threats and recording her reactions. Psychological intimidation, control, abuse of trust, the nightmares, the fainting, the fear. It wasn't illness. It was trauma. Daniel stood in his marble kitchen as officers explained everything. His legs nearly gave out. The guilt crushed him. He had been so busy building a secure future that he hadn't seen the danger inside his own home. When Victor was taken away in handcuffs, Sophie didn't cry. For the first time in months, she slept through the night. The healing wasn't instant. There were therapy sessions, difficult conversations, tears. Daniel didn't try to hide anymore. He stepped back from his company temporarily. Board members protested, but he didn't care. Every morning, he now walked Sophie to school himself. They stopped for hot chocolate on cold Toronto mornings. They sat together watching the sunset over Lake Ontario. He listened, truly listened, when she spoke. Maya remained with the family, not just as a nanny, but as someone Daniel trusted deeply. She had saved his daughter in a way money never could. Months passed. Sophie began laughing again. She returned to skating. She painted pictures filled with bright colors instead of dark scribbles. The doctors who once searched for medical answers now simply nodded at her steady recovery. One evening, nearly a year later, Sophie crawled into her father's lap and said quietly, "Daddy, I'm not scared anymore." Daniel held her tighter than he ever had. He realized something painful but powerful: success means nothing if you're not present. Protection is more than walls and alarms. Sometimes the real monsters don't look like strangers. And sometimes healing begins when someone dares to look under the bed. Maya didn't see herself as a hero. She simply listened when a child whispered. But because she did, a little girl got her childhood back. And in a mansion overlooking Lake Ontario, a father finally understood that love is not measured by what you provide, but by how closely you pay attention.